I changed the title to Going Back Over the Bridge, picking up the theme we introduced last week. Last week we presented the idea, which appears to be behind the letters of Dionysius, that here was a vast Hellenic culture, profound, especially vast. We're at 529 AD, the collapse of the Hellenic age and all philosophy, public teaching of philosophy. The philosophers are exiled to Syria. 2 years later, year and a half later or so, they discover these letters. It's passed off as being authored by the companion of St. Paul. There's some disagreement at the time, but they overcame it. And therefore, these letters and the two writings that he had accompanied it entered into Christian thought. What they did was, the author, they perhaps, they poured that Hellenic tradition into 10 letters. It had a profound effect. It Platonized Christianity for 1,000 years. That's what it did. Actually, about 1,200 years, until the fraud was detected. Then they threw out, as you know, not only the dirty water, but they threw out the baby with the dirty water. And that ended the study of theology under the assumption that this was all Christian, because it turned out, of course, to be pagan and Platonic. Well, how do we stand today? Well, we don't have a Hellenic tradition taught in our culture. It's not part of our culture. By that I mean Parmenides, I mean Plato, I mean Plotinus and the thinkers that come between these, but principally these thinkers. The vast writings of Plato, Plotinus, Proclus, all of that vast material was then dispersed. Didn't come back into Europe until the 16th century. And some of the writings didn't come back until the very late 19th, and some of them are yet to be translated. The thinker after Proclus, especially Damascus, is still being argued about, and we don't have an adequate translation of his thought. So now our culture, American culture, we are not familiar with these thinkers. They're not in the mainstream anymore. Christianity, as we spoke about on previous talks, is being attacked by its own theologians to such a degree that the most advanced theologians are saying it is a man-made theology, and the basic writings are philosophical works of Stoics and Cynic philosophers. So therefore, modern criticism has now turned on Christianity, traditional Christianity, by their own thinkers, and that too has suffered an eclipse. Now, is it interesting now to consider that at the close of this Hellenic period, or Hellenistic period, Dionysius, Pseudo-Dionysius, compressed all of these things into 10 letters and created a bridge, right, along which then this material could flow. Brief, and so it entered into Europe. Well, now we don't have really the great roots and the need for Christianity in the way in which it formerly was required. We'd like to get back and take a look at this material, but it's so vast and alien to us that it's difficult for us to get back to it. Hypothesis. Is it possible then that we can use the very writings as a bridge to go back to the past? Is it possible to look at the letters and see what we can find in it of philosophical content that might help us bridge that gap and bring us back into a Hellenic philosophy? And if that is true, how would we do it? Well, that's the goal for tonight. So, let me repeat them. If all of these works then were condensed into these 10 letters and 2 other works, and that provided an opportunity for Platonic thought, Hellenistic Platonic thought, Neoplatonic tradition to enter into Europe, into Christendom, may it not going backwards allow us a compact and abbreviated jump into the past, being guided by what may be the essence of the Hellenistic period. That's what we're doing. Now, what's nice about it, you see, we can forget what was because we're really not brought into it in our own culture. So we don't have to worry about forgetting about Plato and Proclus, since we don't even have to worry about forgetting about it. It's been been a genocide against the Hellenic culture. Now, what I'm going to suggest, therefore, when we look at these letters, why don't we just forget all the Christianizing passages, let them recede, use them occasionally because they do have some good images, right? So that then we can see the process. Therefore, we want to recall by focusing on certain parts of it, the process that's being introduced through these letters, so we can learn the method of Pseudo-Dionysius, because that method and that process entered into European history and had a major effect on its whole intellectual thought. So that's where we're going. Now, as you can see, if there are 10 letters, there are a few missing here. 1, 2, 3, and 10. Good reason, and I'll hold it back. So what I'd like to do is kind of direct your attention to these letters, and I'm going to then help you see certain key passages which I think represent the key philosophical thought of Neoplatonic thought. If we can identify those, link them together, then that should be the material that can help us see the essence of this Platonic thought and use it as a bridge into the past. That's where we're going. So let me now, since you all have a copy of it, do you not? And I want to say again that notice the cover sheet. If you can ever if it's possible for you to get this book in its entirety, you should try to do everything you can to get it. It's an amazing book. And Hathaway is the author. He's a very fine scholar. I had the good fortune of meeting him and talking with him some years ago at a Platonic conference in Santa Barbara. So his name is Ronald Hathaway, and as you know, this is from the hierarchy and the definition of order in the letters of Pseudo-Dionysius. And we made a Xerox of just the letters, and when Hathaway hears about it, I think he'll agree it was for a good purpose. And let's therefore jump into letter number 4. Number 4 I have here on page 133. Now, let me give first a little problem. Very